Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Because Football podcast. This is your host, Andrew. Today, our guest, very excited to welcome Matt Hancock, Port Vale Football Club CEO. We're going to talk about all things within his role within the club, what that looks like. We're really excited for a great episode today. Matt, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I've been looking forward to it for a little while, and obviously we've spoken a couple of times, and yeah, can't wait to do this, mate.
I know, very excited. We first met in Robbie's suite at Vale Park back in November. It was a pleasure. One of many great parts of the last year or so of me getting more connected with the Vale informally, formally. So it's been incredible. And anybody who's watched my YouTube channel hopefully has seen that's one of the videos I'm most proud of kind of this story of why is this American guy from Philadelphia a supporter of what was a League Two, now back again, League One club in Port Vale. And so basically it's a long story. So if you want to know, go check that out. But we've had a few various people around the club be a part of the podcast. So it's great to finally have you on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and it was great. Yeah, great to see you in November, and for me to hear the story behind why you're a Valiant, I guess, and everything, which is brilliant. And we're hopefully stuff like this just tells the story of Port Vale to many more people who you never know might end up at Vale Park themselves.
100%. So we'll get a little bit more into the club story as well. But we're going to start with yours, Matt, personally, and
Okay.
start with the way we like to kick off all these episodes to get to know you is what's your earliest memory of football?
Ooh, earliest memory of football. I think the earliest memory of football is through my dad. My dad was huge football fan, but it was Wolstanton United, who he's been involved with for well over 40 years now. And me and I've got two brothers, but it was me and me one of my other brothers that used to go to the games every single. He played on a Saturday, so we used to play Saturday football, non-league locally, and we used to go every single game. Me, my brother, and my sister. But me and my brother in the changing rooms with a load of sweaty, swearing adults, blokes, obviously. That and it sounds horrible, but it was the best experience ever. It was,
Sure.
a group of blokes, and the camaraderie, the fun, the enjoyment of football. My dad absolutely loves grassroots football. He loves professional football, but he loves his heart's grassroots, really. So yeah, that was always my Saturday afternoon from when I was, I don't know, 4 or 5 years old maybe. And then that's my first memory. And then I was lucky enough to then play for Wolstanton United, coach for Wolstanton United, and then I was manager for Wolstanton United for 7 or 8 years as well. So I've followed a little bit in my dad's footsteps, and he's still is my hero, obviously. And yeah, he definitely gave me the love for football.
That sounds like an amazing footballing education. That's something especially I've picked up on more just being around Burslem and like a few times. And I got that to an extent in growing up in the US, but we don't have that same type of, well, there are some examples, which I
Yeah.
talk about in other formats, but as far as that like community, you spend your day there. It's a physical place where everyone comes
Mm.
together. We don't have as many of those type of experiences in general in the mainstream in American soccer. So
Yeah.
it's something I've like just that informal education you get about the game, but also about people and relationships and all the things that go on. So I feel like I'm right there. I'm sure there
Yeah.
were a healthy amount of pints around the dressing room after 90
Absolutely.
minutes as well. Had to be, but that's
Yeah.
amazing. So from that time and going through all the stages with Wolstanton, what then led you to get to Vale? If you could give us some of those highlights and snapshots along the
Wow.
way.
Yeah, I think from a tiny a tiny lad just loving football and loving sport. I was really lucky that my family's full of sport. So my mum loves netball, so she set up a netball club, Newcastle Town Netball Club, which is still going to the day. It's now got hundreds of young girls and adults that play netball locally. And my sister was always really engaged in that. We went at times, but we were very much me and my two brothers, very much football, cricket, tennis. So we were always very sporty. Lucky that we got the opportunity to go and play sports. And in all fairness, play sport at a half decent level. We were never the best, or that I was always better than my brothers, granted.
Of
But
course. They're not here to
but
defend themselves, but we could have assumed.
but playing sport was something I just got hooked into really, really quickly. But you touched on it with the whole community stuff. But the bit that, as I got to sort of the top end of high school, thinking about what I was going to do at college and beyond, it was the difference that football and being involved in sport did for me. So the friendship circles, the experiences, the sense of community, the all the things that I just didn't know, or I didn't want a life without sport. I love being active. I love being around the different types of people that sport brings. So you can have a changing room, or somewhere where you're playing sport, and you get all sorts of different types of characters. My dad was he was a miner at the point, so he was down the pits every all week. But then in the football team, there was, you've got accountants, and you've got teachers, and you've got people that work in warehouses. You've got all these different. You've got joiners, you've got plumbers, you've got all these different types of people and characters, which I just loved. I loved the different personalities, and then I started to, I guess, really look at, and I don't know when this was. It must have been in and around college, so 16, 17. I just knew I wanted a career in football, and started to do my coaching badges. I did obviously my college course, did an A level at that point in business studies and sports science, BTEC. The biggest part and I still believe to this day, in making me who I am, was the volunteering that I did. So from day one, I volunteered at it was a place called Row Playing Fields, which was just hundreds of young kids coming together to play football. And I was volunteering, helping, kids, and Tom Conlon being one of them randomly. So
Wow, okay.
my actual first day at Vale, he came up and said, "Do you know you used to coach me at Row Lane?" And I did, I think. But it's one of those things that I just really bought into coaching and developing people and everything. My mum and dad always told me this, that you're a long time working, so find
Mhm.
something that you enjoy and you're passionate about, and really try and go
Exactly.
after it. Because and still to this day now, that you have good days and bad days, but I love the work that I do. I love being involved in something that I'm so passionate about, and I do feel privileged every day. So my volunteering was key, but I got my degree, then got my I was actually, and I haven't said this, I don't think, on many things. One of my very first jobs was at Port Vale, as in the Centre of Excellence, which
Okay.
is now the Academy. But the
Mhm.
Centre of Excellence at that time, I was a part-time coach in the under eights, under nines, and under 11s. So I was, part-time coaching the footballers, of the younger footballers, which I loved, and that was alongside my first full-time job, which was in the local authority at Newcastle Borough Council, as a sport and recreation leader, and then a development manager. So
Okay.
again, very much in sport. Then got the opportunity to move on to the FA. So I was football development lead there, which was amazing. Really got into a lot of the grassroots stuff that I mentioned before around my dad. I really enjoyed that, getting into different communities, helping people that wouldn't necessarily get the opportunities I was lucky to have, in terms of knowing how to access football, how to access clubs and teams and everything else. And yeah, getting people involved that were sort of non-traditional footballers. Did that for, I think it was about 2.5, 3 years, and then I saw the opportunity at Burton Albion, and went to Burton Albion as community manager, then became head of community, and then did a lot of work helping support the club as well, as time progressed. And I was there for 11 years at Burton Albion, and I must say, loved every second. But brilliant community club, some unbelievable people. I loved the local community and area that we were proud and privileged to represent at that point as well. And we built a community program from, there was sort of 10, 11 of us when I joined, and when I left, there was just over 60 staff, a
Interesting.
huge,
Yeah.
huge impact in terms of the community impact that we were having locally, and we'd also had quite a bit of success in the club as well. So growing the football club, but also having a couple of years in the Championship, and then consolidating in League One, and then the opportunity happened to present itself at Port Vale, and I'm obviously from this area. I'd met with Carol, and I just fell in love. I knew a lot about the club anyway, obviously, and some of the tough times that it had been through, and I'd had contact with some staff that had been here previously and all of that. And
Mhm.
I did, though, fall in love with how Carol saw the football club, and not just the football club, how she wanted to be different. I had,
Mhm.
through my time
Exactly.
through my time at Burton, I'd experienced a number of football clubs that it does make you question: do you want to be involved in the more corporate and business side of football, because it can be quite, I wouldn't even say ruthless. It's just sometimes a little bit nasty, or a little bit, it's just not. I'm very value driven, and I like to treat people how I would always like to be treated, and it felt like football at times didn't. But then the conversation with Carol changed all that, because it was, hang on, you can work in the club and still have a values driven, community driven profile and sort of goals, which were key for me. And I joined Vale as community and CSR director in January 2023. And to be fair, there was a lot going on in the club which you're not aware of when you're looking on the periphery. Loads of things happened quite quickly in the first sort of 6 months at the club. We were a League One club, obviously, at that point as well. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, we had, I had, I guess, 12 months of everything being sort of thrown at me, changed, done, loads and loads of things I learned really quickly, which I'm so grateful for now. Lots of positive stuff, but lots of really challenging things that was going on at the football club. But then, roll on 12 months, and, I was so, still to this day, now and again, pinch myself when Carol sort of asked me to become, chief executive of the football club, which was, it was an immensely proud moment for me when she did. Yeah, January 24, that happened. Again, lots of change that we had, which end of the day ended up with a relegation at the end of sort of
Mhm.
April that time. So my first few months was of chief exec was actually getting relegated, which was pretty tough. But in hindsight now, the best thing that could have happened for me personally, and I don't think it was a bad thing for the football club, because we reset everything. A completely different 12 months, as you very well know. Still just as hard
Absolutely.
work, still so much to do, still so much to learn and grow and get right. But yeah, I'm feeling quite good, and that's. I never do things in a snapshot. You should know that by now. But that's sort of a snapshot of how I've ended up
I know
sitting in the seat that I'm in now.
we've got it from the beer soaked changing room at Wolstanton now to where we are. We've got that here,
Yeah.
and so I think from hearing that, just constantly, like your parents obviously modeled it, and the experiences you were part of as a younger kid, and then that you sought out, whether as a volunteer or as a coach, that community word keeps coming up, right?
Hmm.
It's almost like a buzzword nowadays too. All across the business sphere, people are trying to say
Yeah.
community. It looks a lot of different ways. I remember like the press releases of you joining the club and then being announced as
Mm.
CEO. That is not necessarily a common trajectory. Typically, from honestly, a lot of times for football club CEOs, you see them coming from outside of football, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you might see someone who was maybe in a vice president role, something from a commercial side,
Yeah.
not necessarily from that community base. And especially to give some people context, who are not from the UK, to my knowledge, all of the football league clubs, we talked about this actually in some previous episodes, have a foundation or a community fund or a community trust that is kind of the hands of the club in the community of creating more access, as you said, with a lot of the programs you were part of at Burton
Mm.
and now at Vale. But it usually stays in its little lane. It's like, all right,
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
the community. That's nice. We're going to put something. It's nice that we do that, but it really shows, I think, the value of the club and then of the leadership that Carol and the Shanahan family has kind of created in these last couple of years is, like kind of leading with that. I'm
Mm.
curious from your background, what skills, what key experiences did you bring into a CEO role that you
Mhm.
think have served you well in these first couple of years?
Yeah, I think, and just touched on the community bit. I think the difference with, and it's the difference with Carol as well. But the difference with me with community and us as a club is the community word is a buzzword, as you say, quite a lot, and it's used as a bit of a fluffy, nice thing and everything. And it's what we should be doing, and it's kind of nice. And whereas I've always seen it as especially in terms of a football club, it's an obligation that you should be listening to your community. You should be delivering for your community. You should be representing your community. It's not a fluffy thing that's nice to do. It should be ingrained in every ounce of work that you're completing as a club, and that means that you do have to make tough decisions. You do have to be confident in what you're doing, but you have to make a difference in it. And yeah, and going on to things that I've sort of learned in my experiences and stuff that's into the CEO role. And I say this to everyone all the time. As a chief exec now, I try to model these three things, which is work hard. So without everyone has to work. If you're not prepared to work hard, you're not going to get. I don't believe things are given to you. It's the perseverance. It's the hard work. Going back to myself, I'm someone that, and I say to, I've got three little girls now, and I said, you work hard. If you work hard, well, the three things that it's working hard, it's being kind, and I know that sounds fluffy, but being kind to me doesn't have to be doesn't it isn't being nice. It's being kind, and I've found a lot of the conversations that I have, some of my most or some of the kinder conversations I've had are actually the really tough ones. That is, it's telling people what they are either unable to do, or telling people where they're currently at, or being really honest about the situation that either we find ourselves in or they find themselves in, and acting with kindness, even if sometimes it's difficult. But I do believe in any conversation you can act with kindness, putting yourself in the person's shoes that you're delivering the message to, and that's what I do as a CEO. And I've always done. I've always tried to go into any conversation thinking, if I'm walking through that door now, how would I like to be? How would I like to be treated? Even if that is a conversation about underperformance or whatever it may be. And because some of them conversations are tough, like really tough, but in this role, you've got to be prepared to do that if you think it's the best decision for the Port Vale Football Club. And the other one is, again, it sounds really cheesy again, but it's being happy. So I said at the start, finding something that you're passionate about and going for it. I think happiness creates success. There won't be, there will be goals, I'm sure, but the way that I anyway want to be successful, I want to be doing it where I've got a smile on my face. I'm giving other people smiles. I'm making sure that the environment that we're creating is a happy one, because a happy workforce, works harder and is kinder, full stop anyway. And if you can be, if you work hard, you be happy and you be kind. If you try and stick to those three things, you're not going to go, a million miles wrong. And cliche for definite this, but the biggest learning I had, and this is as I've gone through the journey, I am not in any way, shape, or form an expert in anything, and I genuinely mean that. I don't see myself as an expert in anything. I love learning, I love reading, I love finding out about things, but getting the right people around you is literally the key to the leadership team that we've now got at the football club as an example. I trust that leadership team. I trust them to be making good decisions for Port Vale Football Club, for the collective, for their own departments, and having that, you've got to have trust if you're going to have a good team, and the trust that I can place in others is so important in my success, because if I haven't got that trust, it's impossible, because getting into the detail of everything that goes on within an organisation, particularly one as complex. Well, it's a simple organisation in many ways, football clubs, but they've got, we've got 11, 12 different departments all doing so varied different things that
Mm.
you can't be in the detail all the time. So having that kind of trust is critical as well.
I think the trust piece you're talking about, and we asked this question, and what we got back from you wasn't necessarily types of knowledge and department specific things or this or that, but it was really a lot of just the social part. Let's
Mm,
say the soft skills of being a
mm,
part of the team, of communication, right? Of being able to speak not only to people within your team and the various departments within the club, but I think one thing that I've noticed too, if I put on my, Port Vale supporter hat for this, is like it seems like, and this is not just me saying it, but me reading comments on Twitter, me reading, hearing things from the various fan outlets and communications, of like the club seems to have more transparency as well than it maybe have had in the past. That's very much well received, because I think the next thing I like to get into here is kind of the club's role within Burslem, within
mm.
larger Stoke-on-Trent area. And if you could kind of give our listeners like a little bit of context of kind of the the town, the community, and then also beyond just the footballing, beyond just the results, the 3 points that we hope for every Saturday.
No, of course, and I think before I do that, just touching on the bits around, I suppose some of the, you mentioned transparency to supporters and the
Mhm.
wider community, which we have tried to pride ourselves on. But there was something again as a CEO, what I've when I've been on the other side, so when I've either been reporting into somebody or I've been part of a management structure, one thing that always used to frustrate the hell out of me was a lack of transparency on the way that governance was done, the way that finance was delivered, some of the compliance stuff, how we were acting and behaving collectively as either a business or an organization. So I was absolutely committed when Carol, when I took this role, to be as transparent as possible with our leadership team, so they understand, that they now manage, and develop their own budgets, so they're managing their own finance, which they've had to. Some of them had to learn quite a bit about that because they hadn't done it before. But it's something that I love doing. I do love numbers and actually getting into the makings of what makes a successful football club in terms of how you're going to financially manage it and how you're going to make sure that it's as transparent as it can internally without obviously scaring people or giving people too much information that they don't know what to do with it, but actually involving people in finance. That leadership team set, the compliance bits around, we didn't have a staff handbook and sort of policies and procedures, which I'm not someone that likes a lot of red tape, and how like councils or the NHS and in England, or where it can be very sort of policy driven. I like us to be people driven, but we need a structure around that. So
Exactly. It's almost like boundaries too in a working environment. It's like, hey, these are things that we can
absolutely,
do, and everybody is on the same page. It's so important to
yeah.
like everybody's kind of operating with the same assumptions.
Exactly. And I'd worked in a couple of environments, one where it was too loose, which created bit of division and some disparity in how people were treated and what their thought of what was right and what was wrong. And I've been on the other end where it was just so sort of process and policy driven that sometimes you felt like you could never get a decision made, or things would take forever to sort, etc. So I was, and the balance, and we've probably not got the balance completely right yet, but we're somewhere where we're getting that, as you say, like a structure around it. But you have to have the adaptability and the understanding that every individual's different, and that's what I want to try and make sure we've got at Vale, where there isn't a one model fits all. And then yeah, then in terms of where we sit, we're obviously one of the only football clubs that don't have the town or the city that they represent within their name, which
One of the many peculiarities, let's say, and interesting things about Port Vale, as I get more into it, there's a lot. But yes, certainly, I think the only other one is Arsenal, at least in the football league, that doesn't have their one a
yeah,
specific place name, right, or a
yeah.
United, a city, Albion, whatever it might be in the name as well.
it creates that bit of uniqueness, which is great, but it also does create its own problem in terms of that identity, I guess. And and then when you say, a lot of people, particularly in the UK, would know around about where Stoke-on-Trent is. So they go somewhere between Manchester and Birmingham, or it's that's normally what's said. But if you said Burslem, I don't think there's many people outside of Stoke-on-Trent that would know where Burslem was if you weren't, a Vale fan or a Stoke City fan, to be fair, or someone from the local area. So that it provides them challenges, but equally, as I say, it gives us opportunities to tell the story. So yeah, so we're in Burslem, one of 6 towns of Stoke-on-Trent, and we're really proud of. Oh, I am anyway, but I know supporters are. Our wider group is obviously Carol and Kevin, who are sort of adopted the city, because they're not actually from the city, but they've adopted the city as their own, where the town it's built on mines and pots and everything else, which is a really working class area. So that as many of the areas up and down the country were, where it's and sport and the football club was built off the back of that sense of community and that bit of we work extremely hard, Monday to Friday. We're getting all of our work and hard-earned money to then go and enjoy being together to watch the football. And Burslam's been a town, but Stoke-on-Trent again has been a city that's been always felt downtrodden for quite a while. It's gone through quite a lot of austerity, and there's been lots that has happened that has meant jobs and have completely changed. We've got one of the highest levels of deprivation across the whole country in pockets of Stoke-on-Trent, and I don't like, and this is where I'm sort of being careful how I say it, because people try to highlight, when I hear people talk about Stoke-on-Trent anyway, they try to highlight all of the bad stuff about Stoke-on-Trent, where genuinely it is like the best place in the world to live. Like there's the people, the opportunities. Some of the biggest businesses in the world are based out of Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. Some of the most creative minds that have walked this blinking earth have come from Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. And we have Stoke-on-Trent as sort of a culture, and I definitely include Burslem in that. We have this glass half empty sort of attitude, which I'm really trying to challenge, which is, hang on, all these things that aren't great about our city, well, there's, for every one of those, there's 5 reasons to absolutely love our city and the opportunities that it create. And in terms of transport links, we're perfect. You can, as I did, I didn't move out of the area when I worked at Burton Albion. Manchester's 45 minutes away. You've got Birmingham 45 minutes the other way. We've got access to opportunities just down the road, which again other parts of the country just don't have. So yes, and I'm going around the houses here, but yes, Burslem has its challenges, and it does, and it still does, and these have to be tackled head on. We're in a tough area that needs support through government, that needs support through lots of different agencies, and importantly for us, needs a football club that understands its local community, and this club now understands that we are here for the people that surround this wonderful football club that I'm sitting in, inside right now. And having that, once you get that understanding as a chief exec or a member of staff or an owner or whoever, you can start to really build the connection with that local community and supporters. If you feel like you're there for a different purpose, and that purpose may be, and some supporters won't like me saying this, if it feels like the only purpose of this football club is to win a football game at the weekend, I don't think we'd be doing our job properly. I don't think we'd be doing Port Vale Football Club justice. I don't think we'd be doing our local community justice. Now, is it important to win football games? Absolutely. Having a competitive and successful team helps exactly what we're talking about, making a difference to local community and the sense of community cohesion and positivity around the local area comes from winning games. but it's not. It isn't how I would base, the 150 years of our existence. We've lost a lot more than we've won, and this club has still been there. And if you ask
Hmm.
about memories and families and what Port Vale means to people, it means more than 3 points on a Saturday. So that's what we've just got to keep being mindful of without taking our eye off that competitive edge that we need to, to keep the positivity within the ground, within Vale Park on the Saturday
Exactly.
afternoon.
Yeah. My experiences of the area and the town have been, different, much different than someone who's been born and bred there. But I've just felt like an unbelievable, I think part of it is the power of football, but just like an unbelievable connection, especially having visited twice in this past year, my wife as well. Like a lot of people that we've met would say to you, a lot of people have said to us, like without Port Vale Football Club, like this community doesn't
Mm,
have anything, and they're not
mm,
trying to be sensational or anything because
mm,
they know it, right?
mm,
They know the realities. And I think, yes, of course, we're seeing the increase. You guys have been crushing it with ticket sales for this season, and a lot of that has been the on pitch success and going back up to League One. But so many, if I go even to the comments I've had in person, or even on a lot of the comments on the video that I put up about my Vale story, was like, hey, enjoy it now while we're winning some matches and everything. But in the lifelong, like the life cycle of a Vale supporter, you're going to have a lot more loss, a lot more pain, a lot more misery than
yeah.
the positives. But then why is it that people stick around, right? And especially through a lot of times where maybe there hasn't. But you mentioned that 150 years of history, which is an incredible milestone. That's, this is the season, but technically
Mm,
once, 2026 is here, that'll be 150 years of the Vale.
mm,
One of the oldest clubs in the UK and in the world,
mm,
certainly. But I think the interesting thing is that despite that opportunity, and obviously there's been a lot of initiatives around that, some things we're working on as well, a lot of exciting things coming this season. A big thing that the club has gotten some attention with outside of just Stoke-on-Trent recently is the new kit.
mhm,
Obviously the design, but not only is it kind of a throwback design
mm,
and kind of a classic look, but the fact that you guys have made this, I would say, a very brave decision to not go with a front of shirt sponsor. I
mhm,
can't think of many, even
mm,
Barcelona these days, they were one of the only major
yeah.
holdouts, right, forever. And then they start to change things, and now they really need that front of shirt sponsor.
Yeah.
But you guys have kind of gone into that, and I'm curious, like, could you talk a little bit about some of the decisions, the conversations that went behind that? Because certainly it would have been a huge opportunity to offer that to a partner, to offer that to a sponsor.
Yeah.
You guys are really making a very unique decision and saying, "Hey, we're going to keep it just clean white kit." And kind of what went into that.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was a very conscious decision. First of all, so the timing was right. So, and in terms of that, I mean, Synaptic Solutions, who were front of shirt sponsor from 2019 until last season, who were Kevin and Carol's primary business. So, but they had just gone through they'd sold the majority of Synaptics, and there'd already been a decision that Synaptics then, as part of that, would come off the front of shirts. Now, at that point, there was the conversation, right? What does that look like? And we spoke, and we at that point, obviously, we'd already started to think about the 150 years and what it was going to mean, and there was already conversation. So Patrick Shanahan, who I know you've met, he designs the kits, and it's in collaboration, but Patch is the one that really is the instrumental one in how it ends up looking and feeling. He was some way down the track, and we got the conversation going about, well, what if we don't? What happens if we don't have a front of shirt? And we've got a new director of marketing and comms, Ryan Grant, and others. When we were just chatting it all through, and actually, and it's whether it's luck or not. Well, actually, I need to stop saying that, because I always say that you don't get anything. Nothing's luck. You need a little bit of luck, but you earn
You
your
earn
luck
it. You earn
ultimately.
your
Yeah,
fortune. Yeah.
you earn your luck. Where we did have the conversation that, look, the way that the kit now looks, the way that we've spoken about the 150 years, the identity, that we wanted to bring back to the supporters, the engagement that we want in terms of the connection between the first team and the supporters, and the eyes that could, like what's happening now, the eyes that could get onto this kit, and the reason why, from a marketing and then more commercial point of view, it could actually it could be a really good decision that we, because one thing that Port Vale's been great at is um, keeping hold of sponsors. So keeping hold of what we've got has been great. One thing that we haven't been great at all is attracting new. So getting new eyes, new businesses, new people looking at Port Vale as an option for, to become a partner, to become a sponsor. We've got some really good examples of where we have got new, don't get me wrong, but a lot of those end up being either locally driven or they come through a connection locally. And we spoke about really trying to explode the profile of Port Vale's brand wider than Stoke-on-Trent to looking at opportunity. And again, not lucky, but you've earned. We've earned it with the promotion. It's then, so the decision was made that what's the, it's well over six figures that we've that was the whole in terms of losing that fronter shirt.
Right.
And the task to me was, well, what's the minimum that we're able to sort of deal with without it having a huge impact on some of our decision making. So we put in place 150 one-off opportunities for sponsorships that have gone down really well. We've looked at obviously the community mural, which you may have seen, and that's an opportunity to hopefully raise a bit of revenue back in a different way. We've got some 150 one-off events that haven't been announced yet commercially, which again we're hoping is going to eat into this bit of chunk of money that we've accepted that we're not going to have for this year. And then part of it was we're going to sell some more shirts and we're going to sell some more season tickets. And we didn't anticipate, to be fair, just how many, because this is where it's been brilliant for us, because we've sold over double the amount of shirts that we've sold this time
Yeah, I mean,
last year.
the first
And
batch of most sizes sold out in what,
so it's
2
unbelievable.
weeks, maybe it
Yeah,
was. Yeah,
and yeah, I know we could come under some criticism, say, look, you could have anticipated the demand even more. But my point is, we doubled the order from last year, like, and
crazy.
you put your order in October, and obviously at that point we were doing okay, but you don't know what league you're going to be in, you don't know how the season's going to pan out, etc.
Mhm.
So put the order in, doubled it, and it's just gone, which is from obviously a cash flow point of view also been fantastic for the football club and season ticket sales. So the last time we got promoted, which is only 4 seasons ago, whatever it is, season tickets were still only just over 5,000, and that's going back into League One. And this goes back to the wider question around the feel around the club and everything now, because we've got promoted again. But I honestly believe the bounce that we're seeing is due to the connection that the supporters and community feel to not just the team but the club, and it feels like we're building something, or there's a genuine two-way relationship. There's no transactional stuff anywhere now. It feels more two-way. So all these things kind of aligned, which has meant that the front of shirts has been it's been a good decision from a supporter engagement point of view, because it's been lots of fans have said fair play. It's great to see you've done it. They love the kit, but equally, it's showing that it's actually been a good commercial decision. The conversations sensitively that we're having now with the fronter shirt for next season, we've got some great conversations going with organisations that I don't think would have come to the table if we wouldn't have
Wow.
done what we've done, because we've got some eyes on Port Vale now, and some of the numbers on our social media and some of the impressions of things that I don't understand, but you definitely will. The metrics now that we can show to these people to say, look at what
Exactly.
exposure we can give your brand, and that's come from having the kit that we've got and everything else. So yeah,
Yeah, it was
it's
funny. I was like, when I'd seen it come out, I was like, oh, this is great. And then I'm reading the comments, and you've got even other fans of
mm,
other clubs chiming in, like, "Hey, fair play! Like, that's a great kit. Wish, a lot of fans around football are jealous right now, not only for the vintage look, but having no front of shirt sponsor. Because I think there's a general feeling among most football fans that like, hey, we're just getting squeezed for every pound, every dollar, every euro we've
Yeah.
got. So to see this like counterintuitive commercial move is refreshing. And then
Mm.
even pages that I was already following, even some like, for example, some Spanish language media football that I've been following for months, right? And other ones like they're sharing the new Vale kit. And so I was talking to like Ryan and Dan, like some of your guys in marketing. I'm like, so were you guys doing like some, paid collabs with some of these pages? Like, no, everything's organic. Like
Yeah.
everything's fully organic. So the wider football world has really latched on not only because of the design, but I think because of that really,
Yeah.
unique decision to go without a
Yeah.
front of shirt sponsor, which has been really cool to see. And you bring up that idea of partnerships, which is something I love to talk about on this podcast because you have your ticket revenue, you have media media rights as well and TV deal, but then it's those partnerships and relationships to really help the club sustain itself. And something I think increasingly about is that is a real part where the story of a club, whether it is Port Vale, whether
Mm.
it's a handful of clubs around the world, that's where we really see kind of the strength of that story and that connection. And
Mm.
one being able to prove it with the metrics as you mentioned, but being able
Mm.
to attract partners that can say, hey, like we see the benefit in connecting with you because it's values, because of the access you have to a market that we want to tap or whatever it is. What do you think for you guys makes kind of a meaningful partnership? And like, I know recently you even just announced one with the Knot, which is like a local media outlet, right? So,
Yeah.
what are some of those things you look for in a partnership and then ways where you can say, hey, this is where we align and we can do something. Obviously the front of shirt sponsor is important and there's a lot of visibility there, but being able to do events or other types of activations, like what are those
Yeah.
things like from a club perspective?
Yeah, it's so again about 15 months ago we reviewed all of this, and there was a disconnect. And she's being honest, a disconnect inside the club, really, not a big one, but a disconnect between who we were as a football club in terms of community driven, value driven, making a difference to local people, etc. And then how our sort of commercial team at times would operate, which would be um, give us your £1,000, give us your £5,000, and it doesn't really matter who you are or what that relationship looks like, but we want that little bit of money. Now it wasn't as brutal as that, but it was not a million miles off. And one thing that we've changed over this last season, and we stripped it back, and now we've just literally the last couple of weeks reviewed and refreshed what we're doing for this season. We went, hang on, if we are if we're serious about our identity, and it's again, a lot of companies, a lot of businesses, a lot of football clubs use the right words, but as Carol's always said to me, Matt, if we're saying something, we've got to do it. It's not the words, it's the action, and we're really big on the action, and we've got to act in that way. And so we stripped it back again, and we've gone so over the last 12 months relationship heavy. So a lot of the well, any partner that we've currently got, we've worked hard on what that relationship looks like. So yes, they'll have a certain set of inventory that may work for them commercially, so brand exposure or some of the activation stuff or whatever. But it's been a lot about building, building on the relationship, and why do they want to partner with Port Vale, and equally why do we want to partner with them? So what can we how do we get to know each other better? How do we have these types of conversations where it's more meaningful? And we actually took the word commercial out of everything. So we took commercial away. This is 15 months ago ish. And we just went party. So it's partnerships, and that's what it is. It's partnerships, and it's relationships, and
Mm.
it's supporters, and that's what it is. And then, but what we've done is reviewed again this summer, and for some of the reasons that you've just sort of noted in terms of revenue and stuff, where we're at now is as a club, because we've got our story and our identity so clear in our minds, and that's not just me, that's like the collective, what we're going after, who we are, what's our identity and values as a club, we can start to be a little more commercial, and that word slowly can come back in, because we know that revenue into this football club is the most important thing, and we're not in a position where we can say no very often. But now we're in a position where we're so strong in our identity that we're either pitching at people because we know they're intrinsically linked in terms of values and who they are, or because and I do think this, our marketing and comms, Port Vale, majority of people know what Port Vale's about. Whenever I talk to anybody, whoever they support now, it often gets referenced as, community, making a difference, supporting local people, wanting to do things differently. People regurgitate the same things. So companies and businesses that are coming to us tend to have, well, I'd say 9 out of 10 now already have that's why they want to associate themselves with us. They're
Exactly.
not
Yeah,
they're not they're not coming just for the pounds and pence or for the brand exposure and stuff. So it gives us that opportunity now to try and sell the club more, because one thing that we have to do, and this is have to do, if we're going to compete in League One for the long term and then push any further at all, we know we've got to bring more money into this football club. And one of the best ways or the most important ways of doing that is through partnerships. And we know we've got to build that. We're just in the process at the moment and looking at our sales team, and our revenue from partnerships is good. But again, it's been pretty stable over the last 3 years. We need to move it to the next level now. And as I've said, now we've gone through all of the identity piece. I feel like we're ready for a real push on, bringing money into the football club, and we'll get the right. So again, going back to front of shirt, the conversations that we're having, and nothing's been finalised at all yet. We're getting closer with 2 or 3, but the companies and organisations that you could see Port Vale working with, if that makes sense, and that's really important for us.
Yeah, you mentioned that now, like some of these brands and companies are coming to you, and they, because of the storytelling, right, coming from your marketing and socials team, and obviously the messages that you and Carol and the team constantly are putting out, is like they kind of have an idea of who you guys are, and so there's this almost pool that you're creating now of just creating a short list or a handful of the right type of people to be able to connect with, because it's something I've talked about a lot. Obviously, your sentiments there of being able to grow the club relies in large part on those sponsorships and those partnerships. And now in the age that we have of social media and all these other channels that the club can leverage to be able to create more attention beyond just a typical, you used to have you have your kits, you have in stadium, around the ground, whatever that might be. But now we have this whole extra dimension that you can use. And another piece that people talk about a lot, and I'm curious of your perspective on this, is especially at the higher levels, but we see even from the Vale, I've had firsthand experience and being a part of it, is like the international fan connection, right? Which we're seeing at the top clubs, your top 1% of
Yeah.
clubs. That's really the only room they have to grow now, is to try to make a bigger ground so that when international
Yeah.
supporters come, they can raise ticket prices, and hopefully sell a few hundred more pounds of merchandise in the club shop. So that's something they're looking at, or being able to, through these media deals and things, that creating like country or language specific social media pages, and that opens up another revenue channel. But it's also
Yeah.
something that is becoming alienating for the traditional, more geographically connected fans as well, both in terms of feeling priced out. You mentioned, non-league earlier that your dad was a part of. We're seeing in some ways a little bit
Yeah.
of a renaissance of fans being turned off by their Premier League, especially, but football league sometimes in general, clubs going to non-league, looking for more of that relevance and
Yeah.
connection. You have just not too far down the road, you have probably the most interesting example of this in recent times with Wrexham, a quasi derby, right? Which I didn't even know a couple of years ago that was kind of a derby, and things looked a lot different, even 5-10 years ago, versus now. And so we're seeing that as well. Again, coming to these values and themes of story, and trying to connect with the community. So how do you see that, even the level that the Vale is out now, where there's still room to grow in the local area, but you talked even earlier about trying to expand the brand beyond that. How do you see,
Yeah.
even at a League One level, the international piece? We've got Super Vale abroad, and I'm part of that in the Super Vale Americas. We have a WhatsApp group chat, about a dozen of us,
Brilliant.
commenting and talking things, which is great.
Mm.
And we're looking to get some actual meetups this year. But how do you see that when you talk about, hey, room for growth and expansion, and doing
Yeah.
that in a kind of like a delicate,
Yeah.
respectful, authentic way?
Yeah, it's exciting. Is the one thing that I think, and there's been a lot of criticism, I suppose, when you talk local supporters, when you think about the new TV deal, the amount of games that are now on, on television. And I know that's mainly UK based anyway, but in terms of Sky deal and everything else, but just in general, the shift away from, or seemingly shift away from, your Saturday 3 o'clock groups of blokes, or a dad and his son, or his dad and his daughter, whoever it is, that just turn up at Vale Park, and they have done for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and will continue to do so, and clubs that are becoming disconnected to that now. We aren't, and this is where I'm not sitting on the fence, but we aren't anywhere near that point at the moment where there's a real decision to make on, hang on a minute, we shall we go and tackle the international market, and really try and grab hold of this, because the local bit's done, because the local bit for us, and the affinity to Port Vale and getting sellouts at Vale Park, are, we've still got a hell of a lot of work to do to get that anywhere near where we would like it. And that is, we sold out last game of the season, as you know, but that was, we only sold out because we've got 16,000 seats in here. We can only, actually physically get 12,000 ish of them in at the
Right.
moment, from a safety point of
Mhm.
view. So and would that happen week in, week out? Probably not yet. So I think for us, the local bit, or the bit where, live football in a stadium, whenever that is, whatever day of the week that is, whatever time it is, remains a priority. I think the bit that excites me about the international fan base, and the opportunities that we have, is that we can do it. We can evolve it quite gradually. In my opinion, we can look at it quite gradually. And that's why, again, love doing things like this, because in terms of where Port Vale are at now, our the kit's gone to 24 different countries, which is
That's
like,
amazing. That's more than I
yeah,
would have guessed, to be fair.
yeah, and me, to be honest. But 24 different countries have got a Vale kit within, probably more if you think of, the kits over the years and stuff. But 24 different countries have now got a new Port Vale kit in there, and that is something that says to me, well, hang on, we have got, we might be Port Vale, but we've got some reach. And we're looking at working with a couple of people at the moment around our brand internationally. We've got, obviously, Robbie Williams, which, in terms of his brand, and how we can use, Robbie at times, and others again, to help, really push some messages in terms of raising our profile. But it is it's a delicate one. But I think I've always been honest. I think, again, for the football club to grow, as I said about partnerships, the only way, and this is where the local supporters just need to hear it, I think, at times. The only way for us to grow as a football club is to look at how we generate income, and how we generate interest, and how we sell stuff. And if one of the ways to keep us competitive on the pitch is that we start to really look at how we maximise interest from abroad, then we'd be silly not to. Ryan, who I've mentioned a couple of times, Ryan's quite big on this. He really does want to explore how we look at, how we interact and use our current international supporters, and, the Super Vale abroad, etc. But equally, how we start to infiltrate other areas, and start to look at Because yeah, you've got your Wrexhams, etc., which have been absolutely fantastic for the EFL in terms of profile raising for the EFL. But
Absolutely.
how can we use some of that on our level? So from a Port Vale point of view, and it is something that we're taking seriously. I do see it as a growth in our supporter base, but I do see it as growth in, again, revenue, and that is naturally going to be something that we focus on. And when we talk about, again, partners, sponsors, the more we can evidence that our brand reaches 24 different countries and
Mhm.
all these other things, and so many different eyes are on it, and being associated to them means a lot more than just and the difference that we make will always be predominantly around Stoke-on-Trent, but the brand can mean so much more to so many more people around the world, and it's just getting that balance right, which is not going to be easy, but we're excited by it, to be fair.
Yeah. So if you had your choice, other than Robbie, of course, we'll look more at the movie side. But what Hollywood A-lister would you want to invite as a co-investor with the Shanahan family? If in your
I don't
who do
know.
you want to be seen in
I'd quite
the
like
owner's box
I'd
with?
quite like to meet not anything to do with investment or anything else, but I'd quite like to meet The Rock. I like Dwayne Johnson, so that'd just because I've always liked him. So I think
Yeah.
getting him across would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay,
But
awesome. I see a lot of opportunities there. Him and Darren, maybe like a
yeah, there you
WWE
go. I
wrestling match, but then
was going to say
also,
an arm wrestle them
some
two, blinking
football.
ink.
Yeah, exactly. Some football skills challenge. Yeah, there's a lot of talk about the views and the metrics, Matt. I think we're on to something there. So
There
we'll see if
you
The
go.
Rock can clear up some openings in his schedule and everything to make it over to Burslem. Sure. Get him an oat cake and he'd be locked in.
Absolutely, why not?
But I want to move here to some of our final segments, final questions here. The first one, I'm excited to hear your answer about. It's totally up to you in terms of time of all time. Who is your all-time five-a-side team that you would select? But
Ooh.
remember that you have to put yourself somewhere in that team. So it's you and four legends of your choice.
And I've got to have a goalkeeper, I presume.
See, that actually we leave open to the guests based on how, we've been talking about brave decisions this whole conversation. So you want to go more sweeper keeper, you want to go with it, it's totally up to
Yeah.
you.
Well, I would have put myself in anyway, to be fair. So I would have been in. So I'd go. I'm left-footed, you see, very cultured. So
Okay.
who would I have? I'd definitely. If I'm thinking about the shape as well, I'd have Rio Ferdinand. I played centre half, and I like to think I was a cultured centre half. I'm 6'3", but I can't edit really. So I like to think that I could play a bit. So I'd have.
More suited for,
Yeah,
playing out of the back
and
here in
that's why I
modern
used to look.
football.
That's why I used to love watching Rio, because Rio could do everything. To be fair, he could edit, he could kick it, he could play, he could run. He was just an unbelievable defender. So, and I used to love watching him. So Rio Ferdinand, I'd have Zinedine Zidane, because Zidane was, and especially if you're talking five-a-side, I don't know if anyone would ever be able to get the ball off him.
Yeah. It'd be a lot of fun to play with.
He'd be amazing. I'd have R9, Ronaldo 9.
Okay.
I,
Phenomenal. Yes.
because again, five-a-side, I think he'd just score goals for fun. His feet, he was so good. And going back to what I was saying before about enjoying it, he just seemed like he'd make you enjoy playing football. Him and Zidane together, unbelievable. So Rio, so we've gone Rio, Zidane, Ronaldo. I'd play just to the left. So that's four. Who
Got
would
it.
I? Now it's if I have a goalkeeper or not. And would I have a goalkeeper? I think I probably would have a goalkeeper, because I'd be silly not to. And I'll
All
go
those
with.
numbers say in America, we like to say best defense is a good offense. So
Okay.
you're gonna rack up the goals. You don't sound
Yeah, I get that, but yeah, a lot of the things that we talk about here is actually keep a clean sheet, and you're much more likely to win, to get 3 points. So I'm closing the back door, I think, and I'm gonna go with it's a toss up. I'm gonna go with Peter Schmeichel. because he'd probably fill the goal. He big, again, good personality
Yeah,
and
characters. Yeah.
character, yeah, and longevity. Done it for forever, and so there you go. That's my five-a-side team.
Solid, solid. Yeah, it'd be excited to see how they match up against some of our others. I think we might have had one or two Rio shouts before. Definitely
Yeah.
is Don, and an R9 has been a more popular one lately, but only one Matt Hancock. So there.
What was yours? Or aren't you allowed to ask that?
Oh gosh, actually, no one's asked me before, so that's a tough one. I don't like being put on the spot here, but I'd have to go. I'm not going with a keeper. I'm going to go with
All right.
somebody who can kind of do a bit of everything. So Ronaldinho for sure.
Mm.
Ronaldinho, myself, also more of a creative attacking player. I would probably go. I love like Yaya Toure. I think could just do
Mm.
anything we need
Mm.
because he's clean on the ball and just if
Yeah.
he's down with a sliding tackle, he could cover the goal as well. So I think there's three. I would say, of course, it's an easy one. It's almost too easy and makes it not as fun. But I would probably have to say Messi. I
Actually,
think
yeah.
obviously, that's just a tough one. You got to go with there. And
Yeah.
then as another more defensively minded player, Vidic. I think I'm going to go with Vidic. Is just hard. That one's actually come up a few times. So I don't know if I'm being influenced by
Yeah.
some of our previous guests. But again, you want to talk about just like one no nonsense defender is just going to shut it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that might be my team. But ask me next week, and I'll have some different answers for you.
Yeah. No, it sounds good. It's not a bad one.
Put on your toes. But that would be fun to watch for sure. And then the way we love to wrap up each episode here, could you complete the sentence? Because football.
Oh, I didn't. I don't know why. I knew you did that, but that's just completely thrown me. I wasn't expecting it. I now need to think. Because
Back there.
football. Because football. Oh, I'm trying to think of something not cheesy again now. So I've said a lot of cheesy stuff during this blinking podcast.
That's right. We
Um,
cut it all in
yeah.
post-production, Matt.
Because football. I'm going to just say something cheesy. I think because football changes lives, and that's it.
Yeah. Nah, love it. That I agree, and that's why I do this, and yeah, why it's like why when you were talking earlier about the Vale and the community, I was like getting a little bit emotional. I was like, we got to hold it together here.
Yeah.
We got
Yeah.
to, but yeah, it's one of those things. It's a silly game, but means so much.
It's and honestly, it's incredible how much and when people you say you work in football, and people sometimes have a bit bloody football, and and you think football genuinely is this a sport that speaks to every single person across whether you like it or not. It's a conversation that gets going in any living room, any coffee shop, any pub, anywhere, any workplace. Football is spoken about, and it means something to people, and conversation and community and all the things that we've spoken about. People don't get relationships as much as what this. I'm going into something completely different here, but that's why I do believe football changes lives, because there isn't enough social. The internet's been amazing, but it's also creating a lot of division in terms of people actually speaking to people and
Hmm.
having relationships and doing stuff like this. And it's and football's one thing that every weekend brings hundreds of thousands and millions of people together to talk, to share experiences, to be around each other, and the world needs a lot more of that, because we're here to make relationships and be part of something. And I've always thought that, and football is one of the best ways of doing it. So
Absolutely. I've been thinking increasingly as you're traveling around the world the last year and a half, and even from before, and it's like there's not too many things that are so universal as
mhm.
football. Like of all the countries I went to, I think one the game wasn't really overly like obvious and visible,
Yeah,
but it's just something that people recognize and understand. It's for me, it's up there with like as far as human inventions, like food, music,
yeah, yeah,
football is
agreed.
about as
Yeah, yeah,
universal as it gets when it comes to our human culture, right? And thinking of even
yeah.
next summer with the World Cup, like, and it's really just like a
Mm,
cultural event as much
mm.
as it is a sporting tournament. So Totally agree, Matt. This was awesome. Where should we connect with you? Follow the Vale updates. What links and different outlets you're going to send us to that
Yeah,
I can?
you can find us on. We can definitely find the club anyway on everything. So obviously at Port Vale, which is on everything from X to Facebook to Instagram. Again, you'll know better than me. To be fair, everywhere.
Put
We've
them
got our
all.
own app. We've got our own app now, which is Ace. So yeah, you can download the Port Vale app, which we're extremely excited about. So you get Port Vale information direct to your phone as and when things happen, including obviously the match day stuff, but absolutely signings and any club news that's going on. You can get that direct, which is ace. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not on any other social media at the moment or anymore, but I'm on LinkedIn and always open to conversation and love it. So yeah, that's the best way of following us.
Brilliant. Yeah, I'll be sure to put all those links in the description and wish you luck for the season. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but hopefully you have a nice holiday in the next coming weeks and then you're feeling refreshed and we're right back into League One up the Vale.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Andrew. Up the Vale.
My pleasure. And thank you all for listening and watching wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please share it with a friend. Leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.